Hello everyone. My name is Lokesh. I am the founder of Producthood, and I'm very excited to invite Bart Jaworski. He is the senior product manager at Microsoft, and he's also a product guru. He has been sharing awesome content on LinkedIn, and we connected over LinkedIn, and we have been interacting for past couple of days. And I thought I'll welcome Bart to this AMA and to get some wisdom from Bart. So, Bart, welcome to this AMA, and tell us about yourself, and then we'll ask a couple of questions from you to learn more about your work.
Thanks for having me and congrats on spelling my name right. I know it's not easy, crossword. So,
Yeah.
hi everyone, I am a senior product manager at Microsoft. I'm currently responsible for the calling aspect of Skype. So, doing this on Zoom is a little bit of painful for me, but maybe one day it will be Skype after all. Um, well, I'm a very classic product manager that works similar to product owner in Agile Scrum. I have 7, 8 years of experience in product on my back, and I share it almost daily through my posts, YouTube channel, Medium blog, and I also have a course on Udemy that really grew in the last what is it like 19 20 months, and I'm happy to say that I've helped over 100 people to also find their dream job in product management. So it was quite a fulfilling year for me actually.
That's very interesting and motivating, Bart. Tell us about See, everybody talks about product management. Everybody wants to build products, but not very often we talk about product in itself. So, first of all, tell us what exactly is a product. What do you mean by a product?
Well, this is a very tricky question because everything can be a product. You can consider your, say, like landing page, your oh, that's a good idea. I have a video where I talk about your resume as a product because it's something that you need to develop to reach certain goals. So having a product is about applying specific product management mindset to it. There is a common advice for aspiring product managers to start something of their own, and people think it's about creating an app or creating a small startup, but you can really go small. You can become a small time influencer. You can start selling your photography on stock stores. It's all about having certain goals with certain initiative and working hard towards achieving those goals while learning on during the trip and applying those learnings to well, get to your goals. And it that journey can be quite different than the one you initially intended, but it's always about the learning. It's about grabbing the opportunities and doing the best with what you have. So, uh,
Interesting.
while the definition of product management and product would be quite different when I'll be teaching it, this is like really the core. This is what you need to present as an aspiring product manager or a junior product manager when going to a job interview, to have that mindset of getting somewhere you planned to be and learning on the journey and then sharing your learning so you can prove that you can take on some serious products on your back.
Absolutely, I totally agree. Now, in order to learn about product management or to build great products, you know, to have that learning mindset, like you talked about, you have to continuously learn. How to build that mindset, because there is just too much content on the internet. Now, you share a lot, I share a lot, and there are tons of other coaches around the world who share a lot. So how to build that learning mindset and have that right path to learn this product management and building a great product.
I would have two answers here. For one thing, I think that everyone who considers product management has already the learning mindset because those people will very often be after college aspiring to be MBAs because the common, at least in India, misconception is that you need that MBA. And maybe it's about being a little bit misguided because I think that some people believe that you have to learn a lot and everywhere and everything. And that's not really it. I have been an aspiring product manager myself one day, and despite having a starting position of a titular product manager in a startup that really didn't have a lot to do with the actual big time, big boys product management, I still had to have 2 years of going to job interviews to learn how to get the position. Really, it was about exposing myself to different companies, to different questions, learning what I don't know and trying to either do it in my current position or trying to like circumvent my downsides. I remember like a small example of being data driven, which in a small startup that's B2B, you're not really that data driven. You are contract driven. You want the companies to work with you. So there's not a lot really of classical looking at the statistics of the UX on the funnels, almost nothing like that. For a time, I would just come out of up front and say, listen, I don't do that in my company. There's nothing I can do. Sorry. But that basically lost me interviews. So I started looking for aspects that can be similar, try proposing projects that would involve analytics. So there's, again, reaching your goals. And if this goal is to become product manager, you don't have to like do everything that's on the web. You have to start by asking yourself what product management is for you. What do you think that you already have that makes you a potential good product manager, and flourish it, cherish it, grow it, and at the same time discover what is missing. At the very beginning, it might be hard because you won't be asked for job interviews because there's not a lot of experience. But if you have a good starting position as a developer, business analyst, data analyst, UX designer, then you can always go to your manager, to your HR, tell them what you want to achieve. You want to become a product manager, and try your journey internally. It's much easier when you are a recognized talent. You can prove to people that already know and trust you that you can be invested in, rather than convince someone else that has no idea about you, that knows only you from a piece of paper, from a 15-minute conversation, and everything can happen there. Everything. The best of the best will be rejected on job interviews because the person they talked to has no chemistry with the other person, or simply didn't get a good night's sleep and is not able to correctly evaluate the candidate without ill intention. It's just human being talking to human being, and there can be wrong communication there, making it so much harder to land a job.
Absolutely, I totally agree. Getting a job internally versus externally would always be far easier. Now, now moving on. When you're preparing for this role, there are just so many things to learn, so many skills to master, and honestly, building a product requires just too many skills. So, what do you think are some of the key skills one should look while preparing for a product management role, and what are some of the skills employers look for while they're hiring for product roles?
I would say that perhaps four of them will be the key: the leadership, communication, data analysis, data drivenness, and did I say communication? That so what was the fourth one that value seeking. So communication is when you are well able to relay your ideas. Imagine if this webinar was me saying something like, well, product management is the skill set. If you find the right skill set, that of course I have years of experience. Of course I'm not perfect at it. I will sometimes go talking like this because I'm tired and English is not my first language. But if you are able to at least vocalize what's in your head to the person you're talking to, whether it's a stakeholder, your interviewer, or your client slash stakeholders, then you can take anything that is mediocre or weak and elevate it higher, because people understand you And that doesn't happen that lot. The clear communication, engaging communication, is a really hard thing to do. And storytelling is even harder element of it, because you would think that human beings that start communicating the day they are born by voicing their needs with scream, you would think that we are good at it. But no, we are biased of our own perspective and the things that we know. And finding the right words to make sure that the person on the other side or hundreds of people understand us and don't get offended, confused, and will resonate with what you're saying is really hard. That's why I'm also using the examples of aspiring product managers, resumes, job interviews. This is something we all do. This is something that I have relatively high confidence that is will speak to the people that are on this Q&A. If I started talking to you about internal workings of Skype, or about my course, or about Marvel Cinematic Universe, some of people might get confused and lost.
Agreed.
Leadership is because product manager is, after all, a manager. The role is quite weird in this instance because you will hardly ever have this managerial aspect of being able to plan holidays, give rewards, but still you are expected there to lead, to be a shining example, to set the standards and be the junction between different people that need to work together in order for any initiative to begin and complete. If you are not able to inspire, if you are not able to get people behind you and trust you, then your life as a PM will be much, much harder.
Agreed.
Now,
So, sorry to interrupt you here. So, how do you develop that storytelling thing? Because I personally find storytelling and communication is the key to get into this field, and in general, any field. Even you're not managing a product, or even if you're on the technical side, you ultimately have to communicate, right? So, how do you develop that skill?
you practice, practice, and practice. And that I have this test that if your mom understands it, everyone will understand it. And with
True.
all due respect to your all of your moms that are probably beautiful, brilliant women, I know my mom has no idea about Skype. My mom has barely any idea on what I do day to day, despite being a great person. So if I'm able to communicate what I'm doing to her, what's the progress at my work, at my course activities, then I know that I used the right words, simplified it enough, and got the message across. The key here, like just small bits of advice on how to achieve clear communication, are then. Oh, now I got lost. See? You need to practice short sentences. If you see something that's few lines long, people will get lost. And it's the same for the speaking language. If I didn't put a full stop here, I might have got confused with my own words, and you might lose the track of what I was trying to communicate. Again, use very easy, relatable metaphors if you have to, because the metaphors are not always good medium of relaying ideas, especially if you're using pop culture references. I presume that lots of things that are familiar to me wouldn't be familiar to you, and vice versa. Other things that you can do is, well, practice alone. I mean, what I found when I was interviewing heavily in those 2 years of transition is that whenever I had product management assignment, that was a great learning experience, because I always do a presentation and then record a video with my own narration. And each time I could bring down the length of the video by half just by listening to myself, being cringed as hell, and then repeating the same thing, carrying over the same messages, same data, but in a more concise and precise way. So the video that would initially take half an hour would be easily compressed to 8 minutes without me speaking very quickly because I want to speak quicker. No, that's not the point. The point is that we sometimes make the mistake of trying to say too much and trying to give too much context, too much detail, whereas you need to always have like this pitch meeting stance when communicating. Your partners in communication will often not understand you, don't know the background, and you don't need to make them masters and bring them down to your level. You just need to give them enough to understand and have a solid standing on what you want to say. If you have a small meeting, it always helps to always relate what's happening to people that are in the room and call them by name. There's nothing more energetic if if in the middle of the meeting I say, well, Lokesh, what do you think about it? And how do you communicate? Do you think that this is a good idea? Then you are like waking up. You give a short answer and are back into my meeting. And it's also you don't have to do it directly. You can just put a person that's in the room in the middle of the story you're telling. Say that I think that my dear friend Lokesh would not use Skype if he would organize this webinar if it crashed, right? You most likely prefer Zoom because you trust it, and Skype has some burden of previous bad decisions, so that's not your go-to position, and it's my work to make you consider Skype for this kind of events. Like the usage of the real people we know really helps the brain put it all in the context.
Absolutely. Now, within communication, there is both verbal communication and the written communication. And as a product manager, you have to write a lot, right? I'm sure you must be writing PRDs, creating presentations. If you want to give some tips around that, that will be really helpful.
So should I return, because I still have 2 points on the skills you need to develop as an aspiring PM?
Yeah, of course. Let's finish that, and then we'll come back to the written communication skills. Because
you want okay, written communication skills. So let's continue the thread. It's quite similar. Everything I talked about spoken communication applies almost directly to written one. But with written one, it's easier because you have it in front of your eyes and you can revise it before it's public. So you can write 2 pages of text and then trim it down to 1 page, 6 sentences, or a single line. That is really possible. But what you need to do is have the distance to be able to recognize bad communication on your own. And you can do it by asking someone to read your email, by installing, say, Grammarly to help you with the grammar, with the precision of speaking. What else? I think try to use as few words as possible, always, as long as you carry the message across. This has like an extreme example when you are creating CV, the resume, where you should stick to 2 pages and yet present yourself as the best possible candidate. And many people will make the mistake of writing their professional memoirs, like what I did since pizza delivery guy to a product manager, and that's not the point. You need to know what's the goal of any communications you want to produce. Resume is supposed to land you an interview, not a job, interview. So you need to communicate, you need to write about yourself in a way that presents you as a product manager. As a part of my course, I review resumes that are built based on the classes there. And very often I see those mistakes. Very often people just create a generic document where they don't make an effort to say, hey, maybe I'm not a product manager here. That's true. But I spend a lot of time to learn. I've worked on my own project. I did some product managerial stuff at my work that resulted in this, that, and that. I was considered for a promotion, but there was no budget, and that will really, really work better. If your goal is to achieve the product management position, internship, APM position, whatever. And this really can come down to a presentation, an email. I want my stakeholders to know that the project is delayed. You don't need to write an apologetic email that's 20 pages long. You need to say that it's delayed, the reasons. You can give some reasons as long as it's not finger pointing to a specific person, and then the proposed solution, whether it's a later release or release with limited features or whatever. Remember that, as Lokesh said, we are in the world of information. We are being overflooded with data. So the shorter, the more precise, the more goal-oriented text you can produce, the bigger the probability of success that you will be successful in communication.
Absolutely. So let's finish the other two skills that you were talking about. Then I think we have a couple of more questions that we can talk about.
Okay, so the two other aspects that are interlined is value seeking and data drivenness. Value seeking is when you are looking for ways to improve your product, and that comes even to that stock photography example, your resume, that will give you the most reward with the least effort. And the least effort doesn't mean that you need to only work on product changes that will take 2 days. No, it might still be 3 months, it might be 6 months. But if thanks to that you will earn millions, that was a well justified effort. But in order to make those calls, in order to be transparent, in order to have your stakeholders' trust, you need to have evidence. And that evidence is data drivenness. You need to be able to produce numbers that will help justify your decisions, that will reinforce your direction and strategy. Sometimes it's hard. If you have some innovative idea or something that was not done in your context before, there won't be any numbers. You will have to have evidence that's coming from scientific papers, from competition in different industries. It will be flaky, but still you need to do your best possible to first justify your decisions. And the other part of data drivenness is to prove that you achieved what you said to achieve. That comes by deciding different key results, different metrics that will be measured and that will later tell you whether you were successful or not. And that's not only in product management. This comes with a weight loss and saving for your future apartment, to make sure that your child is growing in a way that you'd like them. Maybe child example is a bad one. I'll retract that, because this is a human being that shouldn't be parameterized at every age. But many of the things we do can be data driven, tracked, and evaluated. And working on your gut feeling might be easier, might be compelling, but it's not how product managers should work.
Got it. Got it. Cool. So we have one question from the audience regarding, how can a non-tech person get into product management and, of course, working for a tech product? Many people have that inhibition that, oh, I don't have a CS background, or I don't have a tech background. How can I build a tech product as a product manager? What is your thought on that?
Okay, so, well, basically, I think the easiest answer here is to get into the tech. You don't become a product manager overnight. This is not a junior position. You can be lucky enough to get into an APM program just off your university, just off understanding the principles right and convincing the person that you are the man for the job, even if you don't have tech background. But that's the unicorn. That's the 1 in 1,000, 10,000, 100,000 opportunity that will come. Most of us, including myself, have to take the long way around, where we learn the skills that will help us to get what we need, that you start by becoming an entry-level developer after you spend 3 or 6 months learning to code, or you become an entry-level data analyst, data level UX engineer, and you know that you are on a path that will eventually, with your hard work, get you to product management within 3 to 5 years, more or less. And this is a goal worth pursuing. Just to say that I became a full-time, like, not the self-taught startup product manager, but like a grown, mature one 4 years ago. Really, I'm 37 when I'm talking to you, and before that I spent 9 years developing various skills in startup. I was doing my PhD, and all that really culminated in me becoming a PM. At the same time, I'm having people who are 26, 25 in my team that do exactly the same job I do, and maybe on a lower corporate ladder point, but it's something that you can invest, and if you're lucky, you can get early or later, but still, the more skills you accumulate over the time will help you. And one more thing that I mentioned, don't wait for someone to offer you the job. Don't wait for someone to encourage you to manage product. You have, as Lokesh said, many materials from many courses, many videos, articles to tell you on how to develop so-called product sense. And if you start applying it to what you do, you will become that product manager, though you won't be paid for that, though you won't be having, it won't be super convincing on the resume, but it's a building block for your future career. And you can also do that by doing your, as I said, own project product. If you start coding small apps at your home, if you have the skills or you want to develop them. If you do the stock photography, if you have something that you are awesome at and you want to teach people, you can try an online course. If it fails, whatever. It was your product management kindergarten training, that you set goals, try to achieve them, you learn on the way, you succeeded or not. As long as you know why you failed or where the success come from, you did a wonderful job.
Absolutely, I totally agree. I think that hard work will eventually pays off, right? So one of the concern that I keep getting from people around the world is that so they have built a product on the side. They might have coded some app, and now it's like part of their portfolio. But the problem is that even if they show this on their CV, they are not getting interview calls, right? So what do you think is the problem, and how to solve this? How to get more interview calls, and then of course there is another path to converting that calls. But how to attract opportunities?
It's a difficult question because it's really on a per person basis. So I would say that the most common mistake would be just to put a project section behind your experience, just say a few words what you did, and not give it justice, not give it the story that you did it to practice product management, that you had goals, and all that product management thinking is simply not applied. And I don't know, maybe the person who writes their resume doesn't know better. And then comes all other things that can be around it. The poorly written resume that doesn't show you as a product manager or aspiring product manager, it doesn't highlight all the actions you did to achieve your goal, then it will be wasteful. I'm reviewing often resumes that people say I want to become a product manager, and yet the resume is built for a code developer or a data analyst, and no recruiter would bat an eye. And there are also job search mistakes. The fact that you apply with the same template to every company, whereas the best practice is to basically rewrite your resume for any of your applications in order to best show how you match the job offer, how you are a good candidate. And this is probably the most ignored advice ever, and quite frankly, I'm also guilty of it at some point, and I definitely didn't write my resume each time I applied. But if you are really engaged, if you really want a specific position, this is the way to do it. And there are also like technical problems where just yesterday a person asked me to refer him or her to Microsoft, which I usually don't do unless I have a student that I talk to, that I trust. But if someone just pings me out of the blue and refer me, I have an article for that to explain why I wouldn't do that. It's unethical for one thing. But if I know person's skills, I help this person with resume, I helped with several recruitment projects, and I have any grounds to recommend this person, no problem. But this person gave me a job offer from December. It was still on Microsoft career page. And like, dude, it's June. 6 months. Do you really want to be the 4,000 candidate for a job that's probably filled and someone didn't close it yet? And this is like the common thing that you don't think when you apply. You just see the title you like, you see that you check most of the marks, and woo, there you go. Whereas job search is a skill on its own, and a skill that no one teaches you, by the way, at least not in Europe. And there are, I don't want to say hacks, that's the wrong way, but there are best practices that will help you, like having job alerts on a job board that you know can have adverts that will suit you, choosing the companies you want to work for and monitoring their career pages basically daily to look for the new ads so you are on top of the pile. And even not you don't have to take your template and apply first. If you see a job ad in the morning and you spend an hour to adjust the template and be the number 20th candidate, that's still good. As long as you don't do it on day 3, day 7, or on the 6th month, then you might as well apply by slow mail without providing the address of the company. It will be the same result. Some people
Absolutely.
advise reaching out to hiring managers or company employees. I frankly never believed in that, and there, at least in bigger companies, there are processes and structured ways to revise candidates and get them hired. So being sneaky and trying to get a personal connection feels like something that is a myth that doesn't really work.
Got it. And by the way, job search skill is not taught even in Asia also, right? So people have to learn on their own, learn from the experts like you, right? So moving on. So regarding this technical skills, so there is a follow-up question regarding the specific technologies or set of technologies that one should know at least at an early stage. For example, whether it's SQL or Agile or Jira, Scrum Master, what exactly do you think are few skills one should learn?
Well, you almost replied it for me. That indeed, let's start by saying that PMs don't really need that detailed technical background. You don't need to have written thousands lines of code. You don't need to be, graphic engineer. No, you need to understand the tech in order to lead it. You should be aware of how things work, like for example like internet works, what's the current state of so-called cloud. So when someone tells you Amazon Web Services of Microsoft Azure, you understand what they mean. You can explain what a cloud is to your parents, and let me tell you, it took me good 10 minutes to explain it to my 70-year-old dad, but he now understands where is his data kept and why is it safe. I
Interesting.
do agree that SQL language, this is way to communicate with databases and get exactly the data you need in order to perform some analysis or answer any question, is something that some of the companies will be looking for. I was asked on several job interviews to basically pen and paper a query to a database that would give me specific answers. And I think that you have to go as far as right and left join. If you don't know what it is, this is something that you will find when you start learning about SQL. And this is enough for PMs. You don't need to be able to optimize databases with your SQL skills. That's not your job. Other than that, you mentioned Agile Scrum. That's called the product development framework. That's basically, yeah, learn it definitely. But this is unfortunately the same thing as with product management. No one will be satisfied if you had read a book about Agile Scrum. You need to. You need to experience it firsthand to have the skill.
Correct. Absolutely.
Other than that, code development practices in modern computing will be very useful in terms of knowing how to talk to the engineers, that you know what branching is, how the version control is performing. It's called GitHub, this kind of phrases or software version control, software release processes. This is something that will be really helpful to get in touch with the tech side of things. Other than that, let's see, I would strongly recommend learning about AI, about deep learning, machine learning, to have the basic to middle level understanding of how it works, how it can be used, how can it help products, without necessarily learning Python development language, which is associated most often with artificial intelligence. You just need to understand that this is a tool you can use and not a magical solution, and you need to be able to talk about it. You also need to understand APIs, so technical interface that helps connect different products with data and functionality, as you most likely be working with those, and understanding them will help you out. Of course, you can be an API product manager that only manages an API, but when I talk about product managers, I focus on those classical core ones. I don't think about technical positions like an AI product manager, which, unlike what I just said, would really need to be able to code that artificial intelligence, maybe have a PhD in that, and have those skills to use directly. You, as a core product manager, just need to understand your product, your users, the direction of development and strategy, and be able to make the best choices based on data available. You don't need to tell engineers how to develop the solutions that you believe will benefit the product the most.
Absolutely. I totally agree. Right. So we are almost, at the later phase of this AMA. So one thing that I really wanted to, ask you is, like, what do you do at Microsoft? Tell us about your, day. How does it look like? As of course, as a product manager.
Well, I start a meeting at 10 a.m. and I finish at around 6, and then I'm free to go. But seriously, that's...
But between 10 to 6, what do you do?
Yeah. No, the joke is that I have meetings. And okay, so this is like a hard question to ask, surprisingly, because I do whatever is needed to find that value. Sometimes it will be a day full of meetings. Sometimes it will be half day of meetings with the right people. Sometimes I will just go into scientific papers and look for inspiration. Sometimes I will be looking at Zoom, Google Meet, and see how they do stuff and see if I can find some inspiration. Sometimes it will be just working on tasks, PRDs, backlog to refine it. And sometimes it will be just a meeting with a team member to see his or her general feeling, if I can help in any way, just being that leader. Sometimes it's about facilitating initiatives and making sure that stuff is happening in Skype outside my area of focus. For example, we have those meetings about pitches, so proposals for the product that I moderate, that then I make sure that those pitches are being processed and find their ways to respective backlogs. Sometimes it's about having a teaching moment where I present what I know to my junior colleagues and make sure that we all have the same knowledge and best possible tools to develop Skype as much as we can. Sometimes it will be talking to legal to make sure that we can put some as few text as possible without upsetting any laws. So product manager is very diverse, and it's not a single 9 to 5 job that will be repeatable. It's about journey of discovery, the best thing you can do at a given time, given the tools and data available to you.
Understood. So, but as a product manager, you have to do so many things. On one hand, you have to talk to a legal team. On one hand, you have to do lot of meetings, like you said. Now, there is a lot of context switching. Every 15-20 minutes, you have to do something different. So, how do you maintain that focus when you're juggling with so many things?
Give your freedom to your calendar. You are the master of your time, and you switch context only as often as you allow it to be changed. And that's also about value seeking and the value that you can take from any meeting, any 1 hour you have at the company. And this goes as far as, for example, rejecting a meeting because you know you will go overboard with being tired, which it's better to have a meeting on later than basically go asleep in the middle of it and have no input and just be there. That's a common mistake for a junior person to just try his best or her best and do everything that's asked of this person. But as we get older, more senior, it's only about doing what's most important, what's in the top 3 priorities, not the top 20, top 100 priorities. Some things will be left untouched, unanswered. Some people won't hear a response from you immediately. Sometimes I will say, listen, this is not where my head is. Ping me again or set up a meeting, please. Because if I now switch to this, I will give you a half-ass answer and then I will go back to whatever I did and that will also be half-ass because my brain is jumping all around. So just like product manager at the beginning of a development cycle that's often called sprints, ask his or her developers to work on certain priorities from 1 to 4. You as a PM also has to have such a list, at least in his or her head, and do things that will primarily benefit those top priorities. If you start to spread yourself too thin around, like Lokesh is implying, you won't get anything done, you'll be too stressed, too tired, and you'll be thinking that everyone is not really appreciating you because you're doing so much, and it doesn't matter if you don't finish those stuff or they're too small to notice. It's not about giving all of yourself. Give 85% to the top 3 most important stuff and leave some margin to keep sane.
Absolutely, I think that's a great advice, and I think Pareto principle is something we can try. Focus on those 20%, giving 80% results. right? So another question that is mostly among PM aspirants is that it looks pretty nice from outside that okay, it's a high growth career, high paying job role with a lot of an excitement. But what are some dirty things or what are not so good thing that you have learned or faced in the last couple of years working as a product manager?
I think I managed to include some of it when talking and answering different questions, including
Uh-huh.
getting yourself overworked.
Yeah.
But also, I think that the dirty stuff is that you are working on a product with people, and people are flawed. And I think that one of the mistakes I recently did is trusting my team too much, because I started off in a position where a few years ago I would not trust my team at all, and I've grown to appreciate the fact that the more autonomy the team has, the more trust you give them, the better results, the better morale they will have. But I think I did end up in the other end of the spectrum where I wasn't looking at what's happening to enough. So being aware that you are working with people who can make mistakes and you are there to help them avoid those mistakes and prevent them from coming back to kick your four letters is very important in times of being dirty. And again, with people, you will often work with different departments, you will work with different teams, or you will want to work with different teams. And unless you are persistent, sometimes a bit pain in the ass, you might never hear an answer, or things will take forever because you are not their priority, unless you make themselves your priority. You are not in the center of the world as a product manager, and you are the best advocate, the best project manager you can have to get stuff done. And frankly, get stuff done is more important than pleasing people as a PM. I'm constantly making the mistake of trying to be everyone's friend, whereas this not always works. Of course, you don't have to be an a-hole and have everyone dread the perspective of meeting with you. But there are borders, there are limits to Mr. Nice Bart. So that's that's like maybe like fresh off the oven learning of what's bad and dirty. And you have to have limited trust in anything that happens. And limited trust in the numbers and KPIs that you will receive. And you always need to ask questions. You always need to have some level of doubt in what is happening, because if the numbers you get are wrong, if the report is merit on the wrong premise, your next choice might be bad. And you need data to be objective, factual, triple, quadruple checked to make sure that the next step you take is the right one.
Got it. Got it. I think that's why PM job is so tough that it takes years to become better than uh, become a better product manager, and there is no definition of better. You have to continuously work on yourself to improve yourself, right? So we are almost at the end of this session, and while I have a bunch of more questions, so probably if you're okay, I'll share those questions over chat, and whenever you have time, you can answer. But
I've actually maybe let's do it like this, because you'll be probably making some post anyway on LinkedIn, right?
yeah, of course, yep.
So maybe let's ask people to comment under that post and just tag me, and I'm probably pretty famous for not ignoring any chat request, any connection request, or any
Right.
question asked.
And we have like 3-4 minutes. So one last question that I want to ask, at least for this session, is what kind of advice would you want to give new and experienced PMs?
Oh, lots of it, but I think the one that comes to my mind immediately is like, be patient and be what's the word I want to use? Support yourself. Don't beat yourself. You will make tons of mistakes. Your career won't be developing always at the at the pace you would like. You will fail at your goals. You will fail at what you want to achieve, and that's okay. It takes time. It takes skills. It takes mistakes to learn. And if you are not your own best fan, if you are not your own cheerleader, and instead you punish yourself for making these mistakes, it's way harder. And if you are really committed to product management, you really want to go this way, be your fan, and also make it your hobby. Spend 30-60 minutes a day reading, watching videos, taking courses, reading books. That's all it takes. If you are patient, if you help yourself, and you take the time to learn on a fun, hobby style way, it will come to you. That 30-60 minutes a day will amount to weeks and months of accumulating knowledge just in few months. And having the right perspective, having the stories, makes your brain work in a way that it will be easier when it comes to different challenges that you will face, either before or after getting the career. I can tell you an example that I'm now looking into monetization schemes for the most aggressive, most money-hungry mobile games, not to replicate those patterns in Skype and get most money, but to create engaging experiences. Because what those games do is they want you engaged, they want you to want more, but they put a paywall. But that means that people who worked on that really figure out how the human psyche works and how to get products sort of better with it, with nefarious intention, true, but you can take the same learnings and use it in a responsible and moral way in order to create better products. And that's like my area of research and learning right now.
Interesting. Awesome. I think Bart, 1 hour passed like anything. I didn't even feel, right. So, but I learned a lot, and I'm sure my audience learned a lot from you. And I really appreciate and thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule. And we'll continue this AMA like we discussed over LinkedIn. I'll be sharing a post and thanking you, of course. And thank you so much. And I'll be seeing you around.
Thank you. It was a pleasure. And if you have any questions and if you need anything from me, there was a link to my LinkedIn profile. I'll do my best to help you.
Thank you so much. And have a good day. Thanks.
You too. Bye-bye.
Thanks, everyone.